One. Can everyone hear me? Yes, probably. I can hear myself loud and clearly now. Everybody has a nice seat and something to eat or drink. That's good. We're starting now, and for the people who watch online, it's welcome to you too. And it's going to be a wonderful event. And we're sending this, streaming it also, because there are some people that can't come to Norway, and it's short notice and things, so then we decided to show it to the world, and that's what we want today. We want to show to the world that we've built electric planes, 2 of them, and that we're announcing the design of the 3rd plane that we're going to build. So welcome everyone, and I'm just going to take some practicalities here. There are toilets upstairs and downstairs, and there is a bar there that you can use, and there are some emergency exits upstairs and downstairs here. We hope we don't need to use them, or the door you came in. It's like, I'm feeling already like we're on a plane announcing the takeoff procedure here. Okay, we're gonna have a short break when we're halfway through the program, so you can refill your glasses, and we will do the unveiling of the new design that we are very proud of at the end, of course. Like all big grand events, that's where we do the unveiling, and a party afterwards, and a dinner for those people who sign up for that, and it's going to be here, everything. And first and foremost, I want to have a big applause for the team. Can everybody from Elfly raise their hand, that you're somewhere here? Raise your hand and wave, and then everybody can give an applause for the people who has done this. It's a team effort thing, so it's a really nice team we have of brilliant engineers and doers. And doers is something that we need to appreciate, and Thomas, which I will introduce here, has been the guy behind those 2 planes we see here. And I feel that it's very under-communicated in the public that we've actually built and flown, had first flights with 2 electric planes already. And it's not many companies and teams that can say that. And this is a team that he has been building over many years. And I'm super proud to be working with him now on this project of a commercial electric seaplane. And to give you some information, he will present the P2 to you first and talk about that and learnings and things. And then we talk about the electric race plane we have, which is the world's fastest electric race plane that we fly with, as our knowledge. And then we're going to have a break, and we're going to have some talks from some of us, or the customers of the seaplane. We'll talk a bit about how it is in Norway and what they need, and the beautifulness of living in a fjord, by a fjord. And then we have the unveiling, and then we have the party. So, it's a hot day today, and we just get started, right? So I introduce Thomas Brødreskift, our CTO. Give him an applause.
Thank you, thank you.
And you can tell us about the P2, and I give you the stage to you.
Yeah, I actually feel like we've come really full circle right now, because 14 years ago, this plane was more or less conceived in the building next door, which is the Oslo School of Architecture and Design, where I did my master's degree on a sort of version of this. It was on paper. And coming back to this place, it is really a coincidence that we are here, because we looked at many different venues. And it just makes it a little bit special to be right here, where I lived 17 years and went to school for 5 years and ended up designing this plane, and then deciding that I was going to try to spend huge amounts of time making it work somehow. And I'm really proud and by the group that is here today. I mean, welcome to all of you. It's a lot of people I know here, some I don't know. I hope I get to know most of you. The guest list was amazing, so I guess it's a very high probability that you're sitting next to a very interesting person. So I hope you say hello once the break starts. And I'm going to try to do this a little bit in a new way. I'm going to run a sort of film in the background showing some imagery of the theme I'm talking about. So I want to start with the construction of this aircraft. And this aircraft was mostly built of carbon fiber reinforced plastic, and that entails a lot of hand labor, which means shaping the foam, putting on the laminates, and it's quite an amazing material, by the way. So I'm quite fond of that material, and I think it has a huge potential in the future, because not many planes have been certified using this kind of material, so it's still quite new. And there are many hours that have been spent mixing glue and putting the glue onto fiber and planning and making sure that everything is in the right way. And I basically came home from school when I decided to do this. I moved into my father's garage, more or less. My father has been instrumental in this. He's here today, I think, up somewhere. I'm not sure. There is my father, and John, who you can see on these images, who were there with me every step of the way. And we started out in 2012 with constructing the thing, and the plane came together more or less 2017-ish, during 2017, and was at that stage more or less complete, and we started planning sort of the test regime that was going to happen after that. But I want to talk to you a little bit about like an analogy that I like a lot, which is eating an elephant, because that's what it feels like a bit to do an aircraft project. So when you do this kind of stuff every day for many years, and there's a lot of resistance, the important factor is that you concentrate on every single piece and make every single piece of that elephant interesting. You can't look at the whole elephant, because that's going to demotivate you. You have to try to make every single bite an interesting bite. So if you're doing a landing gear or a control system, because this plane basically we did more or less every system, you have to look at that as a separate design task and really try to enjoy it. And that's what we tried to do, and we got through it after many years. Once we had finished our construction process, so to speak, we went into the show and tell, because we had just painted it and things. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the features of the plane, but I'm not going to talk about the features in a selling way. I'm going to talk a bit more about them as maybe why it wasn't the best idea in a way to do it this way. So one of the first features that you see on this plane is this huge glass canopy, right? And it's a great idea when you're sitting there and you're thinking about, I want a great view, and I want to be able to pull this whole thing off, because I want this to be an open boat. I want to be able to go into the pier like a boat. And all of these things are great sort of ideas that you contemplate, think about, work towards, but once you understand how much effort goes into making a locking system for this thing, for instance, and that the force of the air sucking on top of this is going to be around 500 kilos of force at a max G turn, and you have to size your locking system accordingly, then you understand that maybe it wasn't the best idea to do such a big piece of glass. And if you look at light aircraft, you'll see there's not a lot of planes with a small piece of glass. So I'm going to come back to this a few times. I was quite young when I designed it. I was quite naive about certain aspects, and I was a designer. So there are some beautiful ideas, but there are also some challenges here that we recognized late in the process, and then I can talk about them today and say that we're bringing them into the new concept that we're doing. Other things, I mean, the low wings in the water, we have air lubrication in the hull, we have a carbon composite landing gear, which is quite unique. We have an open cockpit system, so it's a very compact piece of information to the pilot. The rest is open. We've got a hybrid system in this plane, or there's not one in it right now. We tested it electric, but we were planning to make it hybrid because in 2010 we didn't have the batteries. We didn't have available the technologies that we have today. So the hybrid was a natural progression for us in this project. And then engine mounting on the tail, of course, complicated, but still a novel and good idea, I guess, in certain aspects. But we've learned so much through this process, and I've come out with the team as sort of a smarter group of people, I think, that have understood some of the limitations that go into designing planes. And that's what I think the new concept that you will see tonight entails, more of these smart solutions rather than trying to innovate and work on every single aspect. Because the next phase we went into, which is the ground testing phase, once the plane was done, it started to show why it's problematic to bring to bear so many new things in the same platform. I'm trying to solve everything in this plane. I'm trying to solve 10 different issues. And it's crucial to test things in a separate manner in aviation, because a person is going to sit inside this plane, and I'm going to throw this plane through the air at 250 kilometers per hour, and he has to be able to control it and survive that flight. And if you try to understand that, you also understand that you don't want to put that person into too many new positions. So a control system, we had a fly-by-wire rudder on the thing. Do we want to test that in a novel plane with lots of other new things? No. So things were changed during the ground testing, because here we were on the runway and we're actually trying a lot of these new things. And what happened? Well, I understood immediately, because I was in the plane doing some of these things, and I understood, wow, I can't put a person through this. I can't make him learn how to fly a plane in a new way, with a new propulsion system, with a new airframe, and every other factor being completely unknown to him when he starts flying. That was the revelation. And thus, the ground testing process took almost 2 years, and that surprised me a lot. It's kind of a flip of the psychology in a way, that you can think you learn so much from 10 minutes of flight, and you need years on the ground preparing, because you need to know that the plane is 100%. It can't be 99% when you send somebody flying for the first time. So this was a crucial period in the process, and it just took way longer than I thought. It's also a learning in certification, because in the process we weren't really good at communicating with the government, CAA, etc. So during the ground testing we had to sort of revert back to documenting a lot of the processes that we'd been through years before. And that also took ages and years. I'm not saying anything bad about the CAA, because, I mean, it's psychology. A person has to sign off on the thing. So he has to know exactly what's going on, or her, or she has to know. And that means that she or he needs to have that in front of them and be persuaded that this is 100%. So of course that's going to take time. So I learned a lot, and we learned a lot about certification during those 2 years. But it almost broke the project, because we were ready to fly 2 years prior. So this is, of course, a very tough lesson to learn during our process. And then we come to the great topic, which is sort of the most crazy experience from my life, is flight testing the thing for the first time. Eskil Amdahl, the test pilot, is an amazing person. I mean, there are not many people on this earth, actually, that would set themselves in a completely new plane and trust the team that has built it. But this guy did, and he is a special type of individual, I'd say. The test flight is a culmination of everything you've done, and because it took so many years to get to that point, I think it was an extra load on the team, because we were like, I think everybody was surprised at how many factors need to come together on a certain day to make that happen. And yeah, it's something to, it's hard to explain. I think you culminate all your positive emotions with all your fears, and you end up sort of like a zombie on the day. So it's an expressionless experience, but it went well. The plane performed quite well, And in this next footage, it's actually stuff that we haven't published at all online, where you can see more or less the fourth test flight, where we did a gear retraction for the first time. And I think the fun thing with this footage is a little bit more, this is stuff that we use for our analysis, so it's not something that we publish normally. But what you can see here is sort of the angles, you can see the panel, what's going on with the sensors. And we've also cross-cut this with me personally filming from the chase plane. So I always dreamt of flying the plane. I never got the chance, or I haven't got the chance yet, but I was at least able to be quite close in this this flight. When we test fly, you choose a few parameters that you want to do on each flight. So there's a very tight program that we have to go through to do testing. And it's linked very heavily with certification. So if anybody wonders why certification seems to be expensive and seems to break projects all the time, it's because you have about 10,000 detailed points, not necessarily in these GA aircraft, but in larger aircraft. You have a lot of points you want to test. And for every test you do, you can't do more than a few. So you have to fly many, many, many hours. And you do an incrementally sort of set plan where you make it harder and harder in a way. So you don't go straight into a stall and see if the plane falls okay. It's sort of very slow, kind of incrementally worse performance test that you actually do. And in this footage, you can also see some of these wool threads along the side of the plane. And those are there to sort of indicate whether or not the airflow is detaching from the plane and how they detach. And it's quite interesting because you can see that it's quite bad on this plane, and we knew it was going to be some of it, but we didn't know it was going to be that big. So what you have to do then is to create a geometry that is sort of it's a fairing geometry. So you try to create sort of something there for the air to attach to. So that's something that would make the plane a little bit more efficient, actually. And pulling in the gear for the first time, that was sort of a big thing as well. It's always a bit of a nervous time. Just make sure the gear goes in, comes out again. And but the amount of details and things that have to come together on the day, I mean, it is substantial. It's not like you can just roll the plane out and start testing. It really is a lot of people on the ground. We've got people at the end of the runway, or the start of the runway. We've got people on the water down there on the boat in case he ditches the plane. People chase plane, of course. People in the air following him, see if everything's okay. There's so many things, and the team was quite new to this, so it's all kind of learning by doing. And the test pilot, of course, helped us a lot on providing sort of a foundation for how we should do this. And all of it happened under the Norwegian CAA. And in Norway, I think most of you are aware that we don't have a lot of aircraft industry. So it's not like we could lean on existing processes, existing projects. We had to sort of invent the way that we do this in this country, in a way. So that was quite an interesting process. But luckily, the CAA is full of people that are willing to take that step and do these things. And that's how we managed to make it happen together. So I'm coming to a point now that has also not been published, and that is one of the biggest learnings of this project altogether, and that is the sea trials of this plane. As you might not notice it when you see it, but many of you know that this is a seaplane. It was always conceived as a seaplane. But the problem was that the configuration, the geometry, the low wings, everything we planned didn't work out the way we planned to make it work out. And we could never really get this flying the way it is from the sea. And this footage has never been shown public. Part of that is because I myself have personally had problems with this footage because it's really painful. You have a vision, you can do something if you see what you want to do, but my vision was not what happens in this footage, which is basically the wing catches the bow wave, and we basically pull the wing down into the water. And that is I cut away actually all the footage of me in the boat shouting swear words as this was happening, because it was we had been out to sea quite a few times during this process, and this was sort of, you can see there are some modifications on the aircraft already. We spent some time trying to fix part of it, but this needed a much, much bigger fix. So the biggest takeaway from that process is that we do more subscale model testing, way more. When it comes to the seat part, it's very cheap for a company to build these 20%, 25% scale models and put them in the water and verify. And that's what we've been doing at Elfly now for, the 1.5 years. We've tested 5, 6 different hull geometries. We've worked on these scale models, and we're going to continue actually throughout 2023 developing these scale models for this precise reason. I'm never in my life going to experience the same disappointment from a concept. But what I'm really happy about is that this foundation and the group that has been a part of developing this, which has been, of course, my father and John on a daily basis. You're sitting up there now, so I can't really bring you onto stage, but I want to thank you guys, because without you it wouldn't have been possible. And thank you for the internet, because we've been on the internet looking for solutions, right? When you don't know something, you ask the internet and you ask for help and you get help. So during the process, I think we have about 60 names on the list of people that helped out getting this plane to work. And it flew very well. So we have to bring that into the equation as well. Yeah, so that's the story I wanted to tell a little bit about this plane. And I think we're going to do a small Q&A if somebody's interested in asking a few questions. There's microphones in the room, I think.
Yeah, we have one mic down here, and we have one mic upstairs. So if somebody wants to have some questions about the P2 project, we can have a few if you want. Because I like to have a dialogue with you people, because it's an interesting way of, there are probably some of you who wonder stuff about this plane, and I usually sometimes say it, and I feel bad when I say it. This is a successful failure, right? Because we are standing here today because of this, so it's a success. But Thomas is not very happy with how it turned out, because it was not, a lot of work. Any questions? Upstairs?
Yeah.
Because we're streaming it, so you need to speak into the mic.
Yeah.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Good. What was the initial goal of designing the aircraft? Was it, you said that you had like 10 new things that were never done. Was it sort of an academic research on aerodynamics, for example, or did you have a commercial goal in mind, or?
Yes, absolutely commercial, because I felt like the light aviation market hadn't moved much at all over the last 100 years. And I felt like getting into flying is too complex. So the founding idea was to make sort of a simplified flying experience where you get more of the experience of flight, rather than focusing too much on instruments and all these processes, checklists that you have to go through. So the idea was to make sort of an automated platform that could be easier to learn. And the idea was also, if you can make an efficient seaplane, and that's the reason why it's low wing, if you can make an efficient seaplane, why would you choose a land plane if you can go and land on water? So it would be quite an interesting commercial idea, I think. If it had worked on water, it would have been. And I think with a few tweaks, it can still work. And you shouldn't look away from the fact that I think that we will in the future do a lot of different aircraft, I think.
Maybe a lot of seaplanes.
I think so. So
good question.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No, I think we'll continue then, and this is where we come over to this plane, right? Because I was introduced to Thomas by his project here, and I was a bit amazed by the things they were able to do with limited resources and a very skilled, excellent team. And I love small teams that have the possibility to execute. So I was intrigued, and must say that I grew up in Bergen, right, in Norway, and I grew up like 200 meters from the seaplane base in Sandviken. So I grew up seeing the seaplanes coming and going, and they were delivering the newspapers when I was a kid to the whole west coast of Norway. And during I grew up, they disappeared. And we're going back to that. But so I've always been interested in seaplane, and I have a pilot license myself, and I think I'm a bit damaged by growing up by this seaplane base because I wanted to go flying. And I talked to Thomas, and during the years we started to talk more and more about the possibilities of doing electric aviation and also the possibilities of seaplane. And then suddenly this project here appeared. And Thomas and Renninge and Leidulf had found a combustion engine race plane and said, okay, we can take this plane and make this plane a pure electric one and do air race, because there is a company, Air Race E, that wants to do like Red Bull racing or pylon racing with electric planes. And then that brilliant team started on the task of let's take this and convert it. And now Thomas will talk a bit about this project, because this project also brings us into this test device where we are testing technology and stuff. So Thomas, please explain a bit about the race plane.
Sure. Oh, need to go back one slide, sorry. Yeah, air racing. I'm not sure everybody knows what it is. I mean, the aviation people in the room definitely know, because this is sort of a tradition from way back, that people fly 8 planes around the circuit, really close together, and the goal is to be first over the line. And I think, actually, who I wish was here today, the test pilot, to talk about this, he contacted us and said, you know, it's this new venue and it's going to be interesting. Can we do something? And then about a year later, we got a hold of a plane in Norway that had been sitting more or less still for many years. This plane, I had to censor what it says there because it says bad words. So it's that kind of venue. But it's interesting because it's this you could call it like Formula One racing kind of venue. And I believe in pushing technology by pushing the limits. So I thought that we could learn a lot and we could utilize a lot of the stuff we learned from this project and do a way more efficient project here. Because this is a conversion project, right? We haven't designed the plane. It's a cassette 3M from the US. It was designed in the 60s, 50s, 60s. And the guy who designed it, Mr. Cassett, I can't remember his first name. Øystein, you probably know his first name. But yeah. Anyways, I heard, for instance, that the size of the wings, which is only 2 meters on each side, is based on what kind of plywood they had at Home Depot. So it's basically the sheet of plywood they had. So it says something about like the origins of this plane. And the same goes for the tail size and everything on this plane. It's just about early days air racing, really. And I think, yeah, the test pilot, he has flown over 70 different types of planes, but he actually says this is the absolute worst and most scary plane to fly because it's constant energy. You cannot let this thing go slow. You have to land it fast, take off fast. Everything happens above 100 knots, which is almost 180 kilometers per hour. And it flies relatively easily up to 350 something because it's very light and it has a quite a big energy storage compared to the size. So in this project, we actually we built the battery packs based on modules that we got off the shelf. And our battery engineer, Ramondas, he did a great job on building that pack. Yeah, we'll see if anybody have any questions after on that, we can talk about it. I'm a little bit afraid to go too deep technical in things, but you can kind of see a quick overview of how this kind of thing looks. It's a battery that goes all the way from there to there, and then there's a motor that is just this big, right? It's just hanging on the front there. It says something about what the challenges are in electric planes. It's the battery weight. The EPUs are mostly small, light, and very efficient. But you have these batteries that take space and are very heavy. And the cooling system below there, and then you have an inverter. And this plane was it actually just came out of the workshop with a new cooling system, because we're trying to, what we want to do with it right now is to try to break this sub 500 kilo world record with it. And we needed more cooling, because on hot summer days, this thing got quite hot. It wasn't big enough. So now we've got a new cooling system for it. A little bit images from that process, ripping off the combustion engine, putting on the bay for the batteries, trying to fireproof everything and get it certified. Not certified, but experimentally certified. In this project, we had communications with the CAA from day one. We had a really good system. We got a flight permit after 7 months. This project took 7 months. So it shows this very steep learning curve of how you implement new projects and how you do these things. So this was quite an efficient and quick project. We also do interfacing. So we have people that work on interfaces, working on the stuff that the pilot sees, which is also quite an important factor to take into bear. So you have to get into software and all these details, not just hardware. My main topic is the hardware, but we also deal with the software. So I'm going to show you just a quick video now of the first flight for this and some interview with Renninge, but everything is in Norwegian, and I also say a few things that are Norwegian, sorry. But we'd like to thank our sponsor, Evini, which has helped us bring this project to bear. So this is their little video. Yeah.
Fly er bygd for en ting, og det er å fly fort. Det blir veldig spennende å prøve elektrisk drift. Det skal være med på noe som kalles formula-klasse racing, som er en veldig populær sport i USA, der 8 fly starter samtidig og flyr om kapp. Og det flys sånn cirka 50-100 fot over bakken, så det er veldig spektakulært.
Noen mørke vinterkvelder når jeg har gått gjennom snøen ut i denne lille garasjen hvor vi bygde det første elflyet, hvor jeg nesten hørte den der melodien bak i hodet og tenkte at det blir ikke mer Reodor enn dette her. Nå er vi i en prosess hvor vi prøver å få profesjonalisert mye mer og lage mye bedre systemer, og forhåpentligvis så blir disse lokalene her fylt med mye mer mennesker i neste året som skal inn i bransjen og være med oss og vokse da. Og det er ingenting som er større i den prosessen enn å se disse kreasjonene ta av for første gang. Det er en helt spesiell og unik opplevelse å se noe sånt.
Jeg tenker at dette virkelig er starten, og jeg tenker at dette er en nødvendig prosess for å få utviklet teknologien. Det er jo gjerne sånn at i racing så presser vi litt grensene og utvikler teknologi som senere kan brukes til andre formål, kommersielt eller skoleflyging eller generelt elfly. Det er veldig kult at vi får dette til i Norge. Det er pionervirksomhet. Det er kompetanse i Norge til å gjøre dette og få dette til. Og det er veldig gledelig at det skjer i Norge, til tross for at vi ikke har en tradisjonell flyindustri her. Men vi har veldig mange flinke ingeniører.
Yeah, so good to get a word in from Renninge as well. He's been the guy behind this project, really pushing.
Yeah, and also Leidulf from Stavanger.
Leidulf.
Yes. And we were thinking to have some Q&A about this plane too. If anyone wants to ask any questions, we have the mics here. Somebody wants to ask about the race plane?
No.
Yeah? Oh. Over there. Could you bring the mic? You have to run, Raimondas. Yeah, I know he's a runner. He trained a lot, so.
Yeah, hi. It's just a short question, really, but I'm just interested to know a little bit more about the motor. It looks so small to power. I know it's a small plane, but still, how many kilowatts? And can you tell a little bit more about it?
Yeah, sure. It's a MRAX 268, so it's the same motor, or the core motor, that has been used in the Electro Velis. It actually can produce up to 200 kilowatts. A lot of electric motors can produce very high energy loads, but it comes down to cooling. So this is limited quite a lot by us now to 85, which is almost the same as it was on a combustion engine. The difference from the Electra Velis is that this is much, much lighter. So we're talking 425 kilo max takeoff weight. And that's why you can go so fast, because it's very sleek and it's very light. But like we said, we had some heating issues, so we're already trying to push to get like a lower temperature on things. Mostly on the inverter side, but it's good to be safe on everything. Yeah.
Good question. Anyone else?
Please don't be shy.
Yeah, there is another. Yeah.
Yeah. There or there. Yeah.
The battery on this one. If you take away the weight of the pilot and the plywood and everything, it totals to 450 kilos, you said. So how much is left for battery?
Yeah, it's 110 kilos approximately. There are about 103 of these modules of 20 batteries. So there are over 2,000 1865 cells. These were cells that typically were used in Teslas in the beginning. Now they use bigger cells, but about 2,000 of those, 18 kilowatt hours plus minus. 18 kilowatts, 18 kilowatt hours. Yeah.
And we have a question upstairs.
Hi, Thomas. Could you say a little about the possibility to take world record speed for planes underneath below 500 kilos?
Yes. So many of you, at least from the aviation side, probably know that Rolls-Royce broke the world record for electric planes with a substantially high speed, but it was a very big and heavy plane. This one in the category sub 500 could easily break the record for that class. So that's really what we want to do now next, is to get that record, because I think it would be a nice milestone for the team, because Air AC hasn't happened. Nobody else has built planes yet, so we don't have anybody to race against. And in the meantime, we are sort of focusing on air shows and this speed record as sort of a milestone thing that we can actually do and achieve.
You want to try to do a speed record with this before the summer holidays, but let's see. It's up to Renninge with the final word. He's the test pilot. We have a question down here.
Yeah.
First of all, congratulations on this big day. I was just wondering, what do you think are the main advantages of going for such a test plane at this moment in time?
Well, there's a lot of engineers and designers that come into the team, right, and they don't have the hands-on experience with things. So I think it's always valuable to have projects downstairs that people can take part in, not on a daily basis, but a little bit, get some of the feeling of what it's like to work with this kind of hardware. So that's the most valuable thing, I think, and I think many of the team members can testify. It's fun to work on this project next to the big commercial plane that takes most of the time. I think it's nice to have this kind of projects going. Yeah.
It's learning by doing, and I like it to test stuff that we learn actually to get our hands dirty, right? And it's interesting when you go into the process of this kind of fly with the Renninge inside, then you have to be really sure that everything is okay, right? Yeah. And that's something that gives the team an edge.
And you shouldn't underestimate the test flights, action, and all these processes we have to go through, that people get a feeling for what it takes. Yeah. It doesn't really matter the size of the plane, right? There's one pilot on board usually anyway, and it has to be safe, and it's the same factors you go through every time. Yeah.
Another question? Upstairs, yes.
Nice.
Yeah, congratulations. I wonder what do you think about commercialization about this airplane?
So actually, we were actually asked if we could participate in some projects, but since we met for the first time, we've been talking about larger commercial transports. And the reason for that is that we both believe that there's a starting point for where things really become, let's say, factors that change society, right? So it needs to be transport airplanes. So for now, we're not going to try to commercialize the light planes. We're more going to use the technology and the experience to build bigger solutions. I think the really the big impact that happens from 10 seats and up, when you can start traveling, bring people from A to B, and that's what we want to unveil tonight. So yeah.
We want to make a passenger commercial plane to change the way you transport. That's the thing. But we have a question upstairs.
Yeah.
Yes. Maybe a strangely specific question, but I have been flying personally the electric Velis myself for the last 2 years now on a regular basis.
Nice.
So you mentioned that the motor is the same, and then how does the battery pack compare? Is it like a lot heavier or maybe lighter, or in range?
I think your Velis has double, or do you know the weight of the Velis or the battery pack? Because
I don't know the specific weight of the battery pack, but it's certified for 600 kilos, but it's also for 2 persons, so it could be comparable in weight.
I think it's actually comparable. You probably have a little bit more, but you have also a very efficient slow flyer, so it's made more for the range and the time in the air. This one was designed purely for full gas for 6 minutes. I forgot to say that. So the cells are not the highest capacity cells. It's the cells you need to push the most energy out in the shortest amount of time.
With a high discharge rate.
Yes, high C rate, exactly. And that's what this plane was built for. So we did not consider long flights or anything like that. It's up, loitering for 2 minutes, full speed, 6 minutes, with good temperatures and everything, and high speeds, and then loitering and landing and finished. That's what the RAC was planned to be. So it definitely has a different mission than the Velis, where you try to fly cross-country for an hour or something like this. Yeah.
Right, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
But it's interesting that batteries, people think about this as batteries, but there are batteries for high output, and there's batteries that's good for fast charging, and there's batteries, so there is different chemistries, and the battery technology is improving all the time, but it's a lot of different things you can go shopping.
Actually, these same cells are used in Formula E, so that's the way we got to select these cells, was through the information about the Formula E. Because you can imagine if you are in an electric car and you push the accelerator down and try to keep a Tesla accelerator down for 6 minutes, full gas. Just try that one time. What would happen to your Tesla, do you think, Eric?
It starts to shut down. I tried it at the Autobahn, I had a Model X, and I tried it at the Autobahn. And after not many minutes, it starts to say that you have to loosen down on the gas pedal because it's going to get hot.
And that's the big difference between cars and aviation in electric, is that you're working much higher power levels for longer in the takeoff, especially in takeoff and climb phase. So you have these extra challenges of balancing C rate against capacity and these things. Yeah.
Any more questions down here? Nothing? Anyone up? It's hard to see with the light, so
no.
If there's no more questions, we're gonna have a break until 3 o'clock, and I would like you to get something in your glass, get something to eat, relax, and we'll be back on the webcast too for the people who's following out in the world.
Yes, thank you, by the way.
Bye-bye.